I think we'll get started. I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for being here today. I'm John McGraw and I'm the president of the Defense Fund. Jim Reichert in front of me here is the vice president. Eleanor Butler is the treasurer. John Hanson is the secretary. And for about 10 years we've been watching this ever since we got an inkling that the DNR wanted to change the operating order. We still maintain that the operating order is not broken, doesn't need to be fixed. We specifically don't want the DNR to gain adaptive management of the chain at their will, because we think that'll increase the invasive species. I think it'll basically be contrary to the new normal, 80 plus years of operation, and possibly do millions of dollars worth of damage to the shoreline and shoreline structures. So the purpose of today's meeting is pinpoint. We've hired an expert from the Defense Fund has hired an expert, so we've all hired an expert. And today his responsibility is to educate you on how to prepare yourselves for the upcoming hearings, which will be on the 9th and the 10th. And we have a handout. I need to make sure that everybody gets a copy of that handout that we prepared. So the times on the 9th and 10th are in there, as well as all the stuff that we'd like you to be aware of and educate yourselves on. Our expert is Neil O'Reilly. And Neil is one of the most experienced experts in the state of Wisconsin when it comes to water management issues. He has more than 30 years experience in water management. He has a DS from UW Oshkosh, an MS in environmental engineering from Marquette, a PhD in environmental engineering also from Marquette. And Neil worked for the DNR from 1977 to 1992, so that's about 16 years. And he rose to the position of Senior Water Resources Planner in the Milwaukee area. Since he's left the DNR, he's been working for the past 21 years as a professional consultant on a wide variety of water management issues. He's also served as an adjunct professor at the Marquette. Today for consulting work, Neil is a principal of Ecological Research Partners, along with his partner Tim Erlinger, who is a recognized expert in lake sturgeon. The Defense Fund contacted Neil several years ago when it became first apparent that the DNR wanted to change the operating order. And Neil is here today to help us prepare, as I said, for the upcoming public hearings. So welcome Neil O'Reilly to Manitowish Waters.
Well, good morning. Thank you for that nice introduction. I don't need to go through this slide now since you already know a little bit about me. First of all, I'm going to apologize because I have a cold. So if I cough or sneeze or I'm not talking loud enough because I'm not sure I can hear myself yet, let me know and I'll try to speak louder. That's why they put a mic in front of me. What I'm going to try to do this morning is a couple of things. First of all, let me say, I'm not here to convince you to be for or against DNR's proposal. What I want to do today, though, is I want to share some facts. The Department of Natural Resources has put together an environmental assessment on the project. It's available online. I have the website at the end of the presentation where you can get a copy of it. I'm not going to go through this huge document, but I do feel that as you make a decision on a position related to this change, you need to have all the facts. So I do want to give you at least some facts that I feel are missing from this environmental assessment so that you have balanced information. So I want to go through what DNR is proposing, so you're aware of it. I want to give you some of those additional facts that I think are missing from the environmental assessment. And then at the end, what I want to leave you with is an overview of the hearing process that DNR is going to conduct in August, which is going to give all of you an opportunity to comment on this proposed change. Whoops. You all live here on the chain. You realize it's made up of 10 lakes that are all controlled by a single dam structure. So that dam backs water up through 4,300 acres of lakes, but it also includes two sections of river, the Manitowish and the Trout River. And I mentioned that because many times they're not mentioned, and there's a lot of people that live on those river sections. They're really part of the chain also. The history here is we have this dam that was constructed on the outlet of Rest Lake, which, as I said, controls the water level on this entire chain of 10 lakes. This drawing here shows, approximate boundaries from the 1862 survey, the original survey of Wisconsin, long before the dam was constructed. And that map there on the right is the current lake, or at least showing Rest Lake, and the dam, you all know where the dam is located. Now, the history of this dam, and I'm not going to go through a lot of detail. DNR does provide a lot of detail of the history of the environmental assessment. But this all started back in the late 1800s. In 1879, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at that time came to this area, found a rapids where the Rest Lake Dam is today, and said this would be a perfect place to build a dam for navigation and for flood control. You have to remember, back in the late 1800s, the main mechanism of transportation in Wisconsin was by water, by canoe, by barge, by floating logs downstream to market. And so the original purpose of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was they were basically our original Department of Transportation. They were trying to figure out how do we use our waterways for navigation. And so they recognized that that would be a good place to construct a dam. A dam was then constructed at that location. It has a long history. I'm not going to go through it. As I said, the environmental assessment of DNR does go through all of that. But basically where we're at is in 1937, the Wisconsin State Legislature established operating orders for that dam. And so we are operating under those conditions still today. And so there is a long history of this lake being maintained at the current levels, where we basically have a drawdown in the winter. We refill the lake for the summer season, and I'll go through the numbers of those in the upcoming slide. So it's been a long time that the lake has been at these conditions. And I point that out because we're going to hear terms about natural, normal, that are going to be used. And so these are relative terms. What is normal when this lake has been this way for over 80 plus years? Is the lake at a new normal? What being proposed natural, or is it unnatural? Some of this is in the sort of eye of the beholder, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So there's a whole narrative in the state statutes, which I'm not going to read because it's very boring. But here basically it is in a table, is that in the late fall through spring, we have a drawdown of the lake of about 3.6 feet. And the purpose of that originally was to provide flood storage, to hold back meltwaters in the winter so that we wouldn't create downstream flooding on the Flambeau system. We then refill the system in the spring. We have a summer operating condition as part of that order. And then again, we have this drawdown in the fall of the year. DNR has argued they have some problems with this. They have accused Xcel Energy, who's the operator of the dam, of not operating it properly in the spring. this is the table of what they say they're operating, and it really is a sort of a minor difference of when do they refill. Is it early April or April, May, is the sort of debate. But as I said, that's the condition we've been operating over 80 plus years. Now, DNR does have the authority to control the operations on that dam. Xcel Energy, again, who owns and operates the dam, operates that under a license from the state of Wisconsin. Now, you'll see, and through this, you're going to hear a lot of different agencies. You know, originally the license was issued by the Railroad Commission, then there was the State Public Service Commission. Now it's operated by Wisconsin DNR. There's been a lot of change in Wisconsin's administrative structure over the years. In fact, DNR is a relatively new agency. Most people don't realize that. The DNR was formed in 1967. And so it's sort of, in recent history, has taken over this charge of managing dams. But they do have the statutory authority to do so. So they're proposing, or well, let me back up and give a little more history here. So under state's Chapter 31 of the statutes that gives Wisconsin DNR the authority to manage these dams, what is called in the public trust. And that is a broad term, and it actually comes out of Wisconsin's Constitution. And we are one of the few what are called public trust states. And what this comes from is in our state constitution, there is a unique term where it talks about that our streams shall forever be free. And what that meant at the time was that streams and lakes are considered, at that time in the late 1800s, were navigation systems. They were our main roads. And so private property owners do not have the right to prevent people from navigating on these state waters. And so that's where that term shall forever be free, meaning free to navigation. And so in the state statutes that still exist, and this public trust doctrine is something that has evolved. Originally, it was the right for fur traders to use canoes to get their furs to market. Eventually evolved to being the ability to float timber downstream to market for the timber industry. And today it's evolved into recreation, the ability to float a canoe or a kayak or a boat on a lake. So the interesting thing about this public trust doctrine is it's ever evolving. The courts are continually defining what that term means. Okay. Now, one of the things in the statute, it says that if you have a permit to operate a dam, that you need to pass at all times at least 25% of the natural low flow. So there is a condition in Xcel Energy's license that they do have to pass water at all times. And the purpose of that is to protect the downstream resources so that you don't dry up the river below the dam.